DC, welcome into the Blitz. How you doing?
Oh, doing great, Martin. How you this morning?
I'm doing great. Glad you were able to adjust your schedule and make it work with us. So glad that you're able to be on with us on this Friday eve of Alabama versus Oklahoma. So let's get right into that conversation. We'll try to get to a couple other games as well, but let's get right into Alabama and Oklahoma. You mentioned that you wanted to talk a little bit about not just who's going to be the player of the game, but that there's some guys who early in the game could potentially set the tone. Who do you think are the tone setters for the Crimson Tide early in this game?
Yeah, Martin, we put up a podcast yesterday, and in the second segment of the podcast, I wanted to try to do it a little different and take a look at what I call barometers. I picked out 3 players on offense and 3 players on defense that all your listeners out there can watch early on and just kind of see how Alabama's doing. If these players are doing what I think they can do, then Alabama's going to have a big day. And first on offense, you don't have to look any further than Tua, talking about the quarterback. I think watching him early on gives you 2 things. One, it tells you if he's healthy, if he's going to be able to play and do 2 things. And 2, if he's on. I mean, if he's passing the ball with accuracy and is able to plant off his foot, able to move out of the pocket, all those things, watching those early on will tell you what kind of day he's going to have. And, of course, offensively, that's what kind of day we're going to have. The second player on offense identified was Damian Harris. I think our run game is big in this game. In our first segment on the podcast, we talked a little bit about game planning, and I think the run game is going to be bigger in this game than it's been in any game so far this year based on just the number of yards that Oklahoma has given up. And I'm not talking about in one game. I'm talking about in every game that they've played this year. So I think our offensive output in the running game. Watch Damian Harris. If he's able to break a long run, able to gash Oklahoma early, I think it's going to be a long day for Oklahoma if that happens. Damian Harris only gets better if he runs the ball more and gets these longer runs. And, if you look at Damian Harris, he hasn't carried the ball more than 17 times in a game this year. So I think he's as fresh as anybody, and that just bodes well for Alabama's offense. And the third player, I think, is Irv Smith Jr. I think Oklahoma has heard all week, all the 2 weeks about how great Alabama's run game is, how great their offensive wideouts are, and they're going to come in defensively trying to stop them. And I just believe this is another breakout game for Irv Smith, maybe another O.J. Howard championship game, that he could be able to run free over the middle several times in this game. So watch him early. I think those 3 players you watch on offense, if they're doing things that have them stand out in the game early in the game, I think it's a great game for Alabama and a very long day for Oklahoma.
And that was all from an offensive standpoint. Did you have any guys that you thought were, as you call them, the barometer or tempo setters for the defensive side of the ball?
Oh, yeah, for sure. And you don't have to look any further than right on the big defensive line and Quinion Williams on defense. Quinion Williams has had what I call standout games every game this year for Alabama, except where he's been double teamed. And I think there's just enough pride in Oklahoma. They're not going to double team him. They're going to play man on man because they think they've got the best offensive line ever in the history of football to hear them talk about it and hear the national media talk about it. So I think Quinion Williams has heard all week long how great Kyler Murray is and how great that offensive line is. And we saw a little bit of that in his press conference where he almost threw a little shade toward Kyler Murray. But I believe Quinion Williams, you watch him early on, as soon as Alabama goes on defense, watch him against that center for Oklahoma. And if he's able to handle him in the first 3 or 4 plays and knock him off the ball, I think you'll see Alabama's defense disrupting Kyler Murray in the backfield and stopping their run game as well. So I think Quinion Williams is definitely the one to watch on the defensive line. Now, 2 players I think other on defense to watch. One is Deontay Thompson. Deontay Thompson has the athleticism. He has the ball hawking skills. He has that speed to go from sideline to sideline. And I think in this game, he's going to be a valuable asset to the Alabama defense. Kyler Murray is going to throw the ball all over the field. He's going to try to get the big plays. He's going to try to show you that they've got more speed. They've got he can get the ball downfield fast in a hurry. So I think he's going to be a big, tremendous support back there in the back. And I believe his ball hawking skills can get him an interception early. If Alabama gets a turnover early, gets the interception early, and watch for Deontay Thompson to be the one to do that. I think his support when Kyler Murray gets out of the pocket as well too, to stop him in the running game as well. So I think Deontay Thompson might be the one to watch early on to see about his play in the game. The other defensive player is Xavier McKinney. I think they're going to use him coming off the end, coming off the edge rusher sometimes, also on their slot receiver. So I think watch him in this game. He'll be very critical to stopping Kyler Murray around the outside on his rushes when he loses containment. So those two players on defense, they start having good games early on in the game. I think that bodes well for the Alabama defense and gives Oklahoma a long day.
We're speaking with DC Capstone Report. You can find it at dccapstonereport.com. We're going to dive a little deeper into those players that you talked about, as well as a couple of other key players that I think will have impact in the game, or if they don't play at that Bama level, then Alabama could be in trouble. And if they play at that Bama level, then Alabama could run away with this. And we'll continue that conversation in the second half. We're right here on Tide 102.9, 100.9, The Blitz. DC, as we were talking, we were going to break, we were talking about some of the players you saw as key barometer setters. What do you think when you look at guys or positions that really need to make a difference and make a play in terms of Alabama's inside linebackers, Mack Wilson and Dylan Moses? Will Alabama be in nickel, dime, whichever one the most? And do you see these guys being difference makers in terms of their role and their importance in how they play the run as well as how they play the backside of the backfield?
Oh, absolutely. I think Alabama's going to stay in the dime package most of the time against Oklahoma. I think in that package, one of the linebackers, most likely Mack Wilson, will be on the field. When they're in the nickel package and both of the linebackers are playing, both of them have a tendency to be bell ringers for the team to try to do that. In my opinion, Mack Wilson, this is a game for him to shine and to show up, especially in keeping Kyler Murray in the pocket, being able to chase him down when he gets out of the pocket. Dylan Moses as well, but I think if we're in the dime package, Mack Wilson is the one in the middle linebacker spot, and he's the one that has a chance to make a difference in this game. I love Mack Wilson's play. I love Dylan Moses' play. I think both of them, whichever package we come out in, nickel and dime, both of them have opportunities to contribute early in this game and make a big deal. If they're not making plays, then Alabama's going to have a long day.
Yeah, and I agree. I think that their play on the running backs in the running game, but also the backs out of the backfield is going to be absolutely huge. We had we had one of our followers on Facebook make a statement about the X factor, and he had two X factors, one being a coach and one being a player. His X factor for the coach was Pete Golden, coming from University of Texas, San Antonio, the assistant second team, whatever you want to call him, DC for Alabama, the inside linebacker coach, and his understanding of Big 12 defenses. How do you see that? Do you see him playing a more of a role, having that experience there? How does that impact Alabama's preparation and play calling during the game?
Well, I think that's always an added benefit. You have someone that's played in that arena to give you an idea of how to game plan against that type of offense. But I think Alabama, in my opinion, the coach that's going to have the biggest impact is going to be Tosh Lapoy and the defense, and how he calls the defensive game, how he gets us in the right place at the right time, and how he's motivated his players to go in there and make a difference. The second coach, I think, on defense is going to have a big play in this game is Coach Kughlowski. He has got. I've heard the inside scoop is he has motivated his defensive linemen so much this week. And he is a great motivator. but he has told them how great this offensive line is for Oklahoma, and they are ready, chomping at the bits to play. And I think the defensive line is going to make a statement in this game.
And if the defensive line can make a statement, it is absolutely going to be a game changer for Alabama. And speaking of that defensive line, Porturis Patton's comment, his second person as X Factor was a player, and he said LeBron Ray. What do you think Alabama could see from LeBron Ray?
I've said all week this week and talk with others that LeBron Ray might be a breakout star in this game. He might have the Derrick Henry game that Derrick Henry had against Oklahoma. LeBron Ray is a great talent on the defensive line. I think he can come in and really contribute and do well. I think Madson can come in. I think those two players coming in and giving a breather to some of our defensive linemen is going to be instrumental in this game, especially against this high-powered, fast-moving offense. But another thing, a person we haven't talked about much is if he is his injury is dissipated and he's able to come in at 100%. I think Isaiah Buggs has a big game in this game as well. I just don't think that the Oklahoma offensive line has had to block three defensive linemen like Alabama could put on the field to start the game, and Quinnion Williams, Isaiah Buggs, and Raekwon Davis. And then there's not that much drop-off when you got LeBron Ray and Darius Madson come in, all the while having to hold at bay those outside linebackers and Christian Miller and Anthony Jennings. So I just think it's going to be a different type of game than most people are anticipating on the defensive side of the ball.
In this Alabama game, Oklahoma game, Lincoln Riley in Oklahoma presents not a unique challenge, but a challenge that is consistent. No matter who they face under his leadership, they have scored 28 or more points. And that includes any time they've had to go against SEC opponents or any other top opponents. They've managed to score over the last 2 years 28 or more points as a coach. When you look at what Alabama has to do in this game, talk about a game plan. You see, I've heard people say, well, Alabama needs to run the ball and shorten the clock, et cetera. And to me, my concern is when you do that, you get out of rhythm. And now that doesn't mean don't run the ball, but when you run it with the intentions of just shortening the clock instead of just playing your normal rhythm, now instead of saying, say, 60-40 pass run, if you flip it and go 65-35 more run, that's different. And so how do you see Alabama game planning against Oklahoma?
Well, I think Alabama is going to use the run, but I don't think it's going to be in a way that breaks the rhythm. I think in this game, Alabama is going to run the ball because they can run the ball, because they're effective run the ball. I mean, who is the running back for the Kansas Jayhawks? I mean, I don't think any of your listeners can tell you unless they study it, right?
Pootie Williams or something like that. Pookie.
Yeah, all right. Yeah. The running back for the Kansas Jayhawks had over 240 yards rushing against the Oklahoma team.
Yeah.
So I think we run the ball because we can run the ball and because it adds to our defense. When you do that, the natural effect of it is the clock runs more. And I think Alabama learned from some past games, especially that second game against Clemson where we left time on the clock when if we just run the ball 3 times on any series instead of throwing the ball every time, then we would have taken some time off the clock. So I don't think we're going to change our game plan to a point to disrupt the flow of the game. I just think we're going to work in enough runs to help with the time management on the clock. And I think Coach Loxley can do that without breaking up the rhythm. There's been some games where we've used the run to help set up the passing game. And I think that's going to be one of these games as well. If Tua makes the right decisions on some of the handoffs, some of these RPOs, and then we call some of the design run plays that gash Oklahoma, then I think that's going to bode well for us offensively. And I think that is the model on how you beat this Oklahoma team. Oklahoma's going to score some points. Your idea is that you're just going to hold them and get them off the field on a couple of times and give your offense a chance to get the ball. And I think Alabama's going to want to score, and they're going to need to score by throwing the ball and running the ball. I don't think they need to be one-dimensional in this game.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think Alabama's running game plays a huge role But I don't think it's a, hey, we're going to come in and run the ball to run the clock and shorten the clock. I think we're going to come in with the idea that we can absolutely dominate this game in the running game and get as many. Saban is always looking for explosive plays, and I think we're going to get as many explosive plays in the running game at 15 to 20 yards or more, and that's why we're going to use the run. When we come back, DC, in the fourth quarter, I want to ask you about another guy on the offensive side of the ball. We hadn't talked about him in today's program. We talked about him in prior weeks. His impact going back home, having an opportunity to play in his home against his home state team. What impact you think this young man's going to have on the game? We'll talk about that and more right here on the Blitz on Tide 102.9 and 100.9. We're talking to DC with the Capstone, DC Capstone Report, DCCapstoneReport.com, freelancepictures.com, sponsors that, as well as Roll Tide Bama presenting DC and the Capstone Report. All right, DC, as we were going to break there, we were going to be talking a little bit about a young man that I think is poised to have another big game, and can he duplicate his MVP performance? Talking about Josh Jacobs, but before we get to that, JPC wants to talk with you about Alabama versus Oklahoma. JPC, you're in with DC. What's on your mind?
All right, brother. That's a nice lead-in with the Cool in the gang, right?
Yeah.
I was just going to ask y'all, because when we played Texas way back when in Saban's first national championship, Colt McCoy got a little dinged in the first quarter, and they basically pulled him out of that game. I've always had questions about that, whether he was pulled because they were trying to protect their investment, or do you think that Kyler Murray, if he gets dinged early on, do you think that they maybe pull him for the same reason?
DC, you can respond first.
Well, I think going back to that Texas game, I think McCoy was really hurt. I think he got cracked ribs, hard to play with those. I think he's really hurt. In this game, I think if Kyler Murray gets hurt, I think they're going to look long and hard before they get him back on the field. But what I can tell about Kyler Murray, he's a kid who's from his dad has instilled in him the fight to want to compete. So I just can't see them putting him for just a ding. I think it's going to have to be a significant injury for him not to be able to play.
All righty.
Yeah, and I don't think that – I think Kyler Murray, if he gets something that is threatening to his baseball future, then I could see him, if he gets some type of injury with the hand or, shoulder or something like that, that would be a direct impact on his plan, then I could definitely see him, being smart about it, and which I understand. I wouldn't blame him in that situation, but I think it's going to have to be something that's legit. I don't think he'll take a dive. Got anything else, JPC?
Yeah, on a lighter note, I run a national sports group myself, and these Oklahoma fans are wanting me to take them up on a bet, and I was going to ask y'all if I should take the bet. Basically, if Alabama loses, I have to wear a Oklahoma Sooners jersey and do a Facebook Live singing their little fight song.
Yeah,
and of course, if I win, they have to wear the Alabama jersey and do the same. So should I take that bet?
I mean, what you got to lose? You think
Definitely take it.
You think Alabama going to lose?
No.
Okay. All right, then. There you go.
Take the bet. You have nothing to lose, JPC.
All right.
All
Thanks,
right,
JPC.
All right, brother.
All right. DC, as we were talking to before we brought him in, just what I'm thinking that this young man is looking for an absolute opportunity coming off of the MVP of the SEC championship game. What type of game do you think he's going to have?
I think Josh Jacobs is going to have a fantastic game. This young man has a character. He has the stick-to-itness, the drive to do better for his family and for himself. And I think this is the game that gives him the national stage to do that. So anytime he has the ball, anytime he has the opportunity to make a difference, he's going to do it in this game. He showed you what he could do in the Georgia game. And so I am comfortable anytime he has the ball in his hand. I think he gets opportunities in this game because I believe one thing I'm hearing maybe a little tidbit there for your fans is I think we're going to see some different schemes because Oklahoma's been preparing for everything they've seen for Alabama. And I believe we've seen a little bit of snippet of this, but we're going to see a lot of the two-back sets for Josh Jacobs is the second back end, no matter whether it's Najee Harris or Damian Harris. I think you can see Josh Jacobs play a lot. Also, from what I'm hearing, I think there's going to be some plays where Jalen Hurts and Josh Jacobs are on the field at the same time. So, and you might even see Josh Jacobs run out of the Wildcat on short yardage situations where he's been successful. So I think the game plan is to get Josh Jacobs the ball, and I think he gets it in multiple ways, passing the ball and handoffs in this game.
Yeah, I think it's going to be definitely some not trickery in terms of trick plays and what you do with the ball, but I think Alabama's going to throw a lot at them from a formation standpoint. You mentioned Jalen. I think Tua, you mentioned him early on. We need him to be 100%. I've heard people say we need Tua more against Clemson than we do against Oklahoma. And to me, this is the game where you need to score points. And the reality of it is we have a greater chance of scoring more points with Tua's style of play than we do with Jalen's. And I think we're going to need points in this game to win. So let's talk a little bit. And, James, I'll get your prediction as well. But I'll toss it over to Glass and get James' prediction, then I'll come back to you, DC. James, what do you have in this particular game?
I do have a high-scoring game in this one. You just can't. Obviously, you're not going to be able to shut out a team like Oklahoma or even really stop them as far as limiting their point production just with the weapons that they have and their ability to score in volume. But, I mean, Tua and the Alabama offense and Jalen Hurts with his performance against Georgia, they've shown also why they're the second highest scoring team per average when it comes to the FBS. And Oklahoma's defense has not exactly been very good either in red zone situations or in third down situations. And Bama will get their fair share of third down conversions, keep those chains moving, and keep the Oklahoma offense off the field enough. So I like Alabama also get a few turnovers to make a difference, 52-38.
All right, 52-38. How many total yards you got for Tua?
We're going to go 320 yards.
All right. Thanks. DC, what do you have? We've all the hay is being pushed into the barn. So what you got for Alabama and Oklahoma?
Well, I think Alabama comes out in this game and makes a statement. I think Alabama's going to get up big early. Oklahoma's going to score some points. They'll come late. But I think Alabama stops them enough and scores enough to double them up. I'm looking at Alabama 62, Oklahoma 31, and Tua has 335 total yards.
All right. See, DC, we hadn't talked, but I told James I'm trying to decide between 31 and 34 points for Oklahoma. And then I scared myself because I feel like we can score 60 points on this team. Easy. But I don't feel like they can score more than 31 and 34. But I didn't go that high. I figured this one because I've been the guy that has been going, 50-something points every week. But this week I got it 45-31. And I could change that because I'm like you. I really think we're going to have our way offensively. And if we have – I don't think they're going to stop us a lot. The question is, will we have chunk plays or will we have drives that eat the clock with the running game, et cetera? And that's if we have drives that are if we have a bunch of explosive plays, then we're going to get in the 60s. But if we have some sustained drives, not trying to sustain drives, but just driving with consistent plays, I think we get in that 45 to 50 range.
Well, I agree with you, but my score is based on a prediction of Alabama hitting on all cylinders.
Yes.
Doing everything I think they could do, and that's the way I've always predicted my game. And, Martin, I know you and I both said that Coach Saban is not the kind of coach to run a game, run up a score.
Yeah.
But I did in my back of my mind, I just see this playing out where Alabama's hitting on all cylinders, and you get that sly little grin that he had after that onside kick against Clemson, and he looks over on the headset to Coach Loxley and says, "Run it up, Lox. Let them remember they played the Tide tonight."
And
so
that
one of those. I think it's one of those type games.
And I've said that a couple times on the show that I believe that he might just run up the score on this team. That's why I want to go in the 60s with you. So it's possible by the time I turn my score in to Marquise that it could be in the 60s. But like I said, I usually pick the games based on them playing a perfect game. I don't know if they will or not. If they do, it's going to be in the 60s. If not, if they have a mistake here or two, it's going to be in that 45-point range. DC, we'll definitely be looking forward to catching up with you next week. Thanks for hanging out with us on this Friday.
Enjoyed it, Martin. Y'all have a great week and roll tide.